1 in 5 students report being bullied. Behind every bully is a psychology most people don't understand. Today, we're diving deep into the mind of a bully, the types, the stages, the real data, and the disturbing reasons behind their behavior. Bullying isn't just typical conflict. According to the CDC, true bullying has 3 distinct characteristics. It's intentional, it's repeated over time, and there's always a power imbalance. The bully specifically targets someone weaker, whether physically, psychologically, or socially. This asymmetry of power is what makes bullying so damaging. The statistics are staggering. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, 19.2% of students ages 12 to 18 report being bullied. That's nearly 1 in 5 kids. Female students are more likely to be bullied than males, 21.8% compared to 16.7%. But here's what's disturbing. Boys engage more in physical bullying, while girls use psychological warfare, spreading rumors and social exclusion. In fact, 15% of students report being made the subject of rumors, making it the most common form of bullying. And here's the kicker. 41% of victims believe the bullying will happen again. Not all bullies are the same. Psychology research identifies 5 distinct types, each with their own motivations and psychological makeup. First, the narcissistic bully. Research shows bullies score significantly lower on agreeableness and higher on extroversion. The narcissistic bully lacks empathy, needs constant admiration, and has what psychologists call brittle narcissism. Their self-esteem appears high but is actually fragile. They bully to establish dominance and feed their grandiose self-image. Studies show they use bystanders to enhance their status in the group. When their ego is threatened, they become aggressive to maintain their perceived superiority. Second, the sadistic bully, the most disturbing type. Research on the dark tetrad personality traits reveals these bullies actually derive pleasure from causing pain. They lack anxiety about consequences and actively enjoy watching their victims suffer. Studies show sadistic personality traits are positively correlated with bullying behavior. These bullies don't just want power, they want to see you hurt. Third, the bully victim, perhaps the most complex type. Between 2 to 10% of students fall into this category. These are individuals who were once victims themselves and now bully others as a defense mechanism. Research shows they have the highest levels of emotional and behavioral difficulties. They score high on both neuroticism and narcissism. When they feel threatened, they lash out aggressively, trapped in a cycle of victimization and retaliation. Fourth, the imitative bully. These bullies don't have inherent malicious intent. They're followers. Often struggling with low self-esteem or depression, they bully to fit in with dominant groups. Research shows bullying is a social phenomenon, and these individuals gain status by participating. They're seeking acceptance and validation from more powerful peers, essentially bullying as a survival strategy in the social hierarchy. Finally, the impulsive bully. Unlike the others, these individuals lack emotional regulation skills. They may not intend long-term harm, but act out aggressively in moments of frustration or anger. Research shows these bullies often come from environments where conflict resolution skills weren't taught. They haven't learned to manage their emotions, so they lash out without fully understanding the consequences. They can change their behavior, but only if they receive proper intervention and emotional education. Bullies follow a predictable psychological pattern. First, they engage in a shopping process. Researchers found that bullies actively test potential victims to determine who will make suitable targets. They look for visible insecurity, lack of friends, and submissive responses. Studies show victims who cry, show pain, or easily give up their belongings are selected repeatedly. Second comes the actual bullying phase, repeated attacks designed to establish dominance. Finally, stigmatization. The victim is publicly humiliated, their social status destroyed, making them even more vulnerable to future attacks. So why do people become bullies? Research reveals disturbing answers. First, early childhood development failure. If the normal aggression of 2-year-olds isn't handled with consistency, children fail to develop internal restraints. They literally never learn empathy. Second, abusive home environments. Studies show bullies often come from homes where violence and humiliation are normalized as problem-solving methods. Third, the reward factor. Bullying works, at least initially. Bullies get what they want: power, attention, social status, and even their victims' belongings. This reinforcement makes the behavior incredibly durable. Fourth, deep psychological insecurity. Paradoxically, research shows bullies actually have low self-esteem masked by a facade of confidence. They're profoundly insecure people who bully to feel significant. And finally, lack of social skills. Bullies haven't learned how to get their needs met without harming others. Here's what most people don't realize. Bullies suffer too. Research shows youth who bully are at increased risk for substance abuse, academic problems, and experiencing violence later in life. Studies reveal bullies are more likely to have criminal convictions, struggle with employment, and have failed relationships in adulthood. And those bully victims, who both bully and are bullied, suffer the most serious consequences, with the highest rates of mental health problems, self-harm, and suicidal ideation. Bullying doesn't just destroy victims, it damages the bullies themselves. Let's talk about victims. Research shows bullies target specific traits. Children who lack assertiveness, radiate fear, and don't have friends or allies. But here's critical information. Warning signs of bullying include unexplained injuries, destroyed belongings, sleep problems, declining grades, and frequent illness. Most disturbingly, only 40% of bullying incidents are reported to adults. Victims stay silent because they fear retaliation, feel humiliated, or believe adults won't help. If you recognize these signs in someone you know, speak up. Intervention can save lives. Can bullies change? Research shows yes, but only certain types. Impulsive bullies can learn emotional regulation. Imitative bullies can be redirected with proper social support. But narcissistic and sadistic bullies? Studies show personality disorders are incredibly resistant to change. They lack the empathy and self-reflection necessary for genuine transformation. The key is early intervention. When bullying behavior is addressed at age 7 or younger, there's hope. But by adolescence, the pattern becomes deeply ingrained. This is why education, awareness, and immediate consequences are critical. Bullying isn't just an individual problem, it's systemic. Research shows 28% of middle schools report bullying incidents weekly. Schools with zero-tolerance policies don't see improvement. In fact, they may make things worse. What works? Creating supportive environments, teaching empathy explicitly, empowering bystanders to intervene, and addressing the social dynamics that allow bullying to thrive. Because bullies don't exist in a vacuum, they require an environment that enables and rewards their behavior. Understanding the psychology of bullies doesn't excuse their behavior, but it does give us power. Power to recognize the warning signs, power to intervene effectively, power to protect victims, and power to create environments where bullying can't thrive. If you're being bullied, know this. It's not about you. It's about them, their insecurity, their pain, their lack of emotional skills. You deserve safety, respect, and dignity. If you know someone being bullied, speak up. And if you recognize yourself in these patterns, seek help. Change is possible, but only if we address the psychology behind the behavior. Remember, awareness is the first step to breaking the cycle. And if you want more psychology content that explores what others won't, subscribe to Rare Psyche and follow for more.